Hi, classmates. This is Hurentia Joshua here to present my literature review. The title of my review is HBCUs, which stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, versus predominantly white institutions, specifically focusing on retention, student engagement, and faculty and staff relations. So we'll be kind of going through the similarities and differences. So, in my abstract, it states over the years, there have been several discussions and debates on whether African American students should attend historically black colleges and universities rather than predominantly white institutions. In most cases, African American students that decide to further their education are automatically expected to attend historically black colleges and universities due to their historical preservations and their commitment to educating the African American community. However, there are many African American students throughout the United States that enroll into PWIs for reasons such as course availability and financial stability. Throughout history, PWIs have been known for racial segregation and discrimination towards African American students. For some, this is more than enough evidence to choose a historically black college over a predominantly white college. The keywords in this literature review are African American students, predominantly white institutions, historically black colleges and universities, retention, student engagement, faculty and staff relations. Moving on to the purpose of this review. This literature review will seek to study the major differences and small similarities between African American students that attend historically black colleges and universities and predominantly white institutions. How are these differences and similarities displayed in student engagement, faculty and staff relations, and through retention efforts? The method criteria that I chose for this review included that the research must be an original research study, so it has to be a primary source. It must be a study with data samples from students that attended HBCUs and predominantly white institutions, or both. The criteria also included that the study must include data regarding higher education institutions. The method of research that I utilized was Google Scholar, the ERIC database. I also found a few things in the HBU library database, and I also interviewed two African American students that attended both HBCUs and PWIs. These two people that I interviewed, they were both transfer students. The method keywords, and search strategy for this literature review included words such as education, higher education, African American students, black students, historically black colleges and universities, and of course, predominantly white institutions and college experience. A few of the search strategies that I utilized for this literature review included the differences between HBCUs and PWIs, the similarities between HBCUs and PWIs, student engagement at HBCUs, student engagement at PWIs, and the relationships between African American students, faculty, and staff. A few of the articles that were used to complete this literature review included the following. There was one article titled A Legal History of Desegregation in Higher Education, and this article described desegregation in higher education and the results from this study concluded by stating the importance of historically black colleges and universities and how the existence of HBCUs serve as a historical and cultural facet. The writer also stated that legislators should acknowledge the special qualities of colleges, of historically black colleges and universities. Another article that was utilized was one that was titled, "What Role Does the Race of Professors Have on Retention of Students Attending Historically Black Colleges and Universities?" The researchers stated that the purpose of the study was to identify how many students had mentors and to determine how many students thought that it was necessary to have African American professors as a mentor. After the survey concluded, the results did reveal that the majority of the students felt that having a mentor was extremely important. However, they did not feel that it was important to have a professor as a mentor. Another article that was used in this literature review was titled "The Significance of Historically Black Colleges and Universities in the 21st Century." A question: will such institutions of higher learning survive? As a result, the author of this article, Bracy, states that as long as African Americans are forced to protest their dissatisfactions within higher education institutions, HBCUs will always be relevant and necessary. Also, until PWIs remove race, religion, gender, and wealth from their admissions process, the issue will never completely be solved. The next article that was used in this review was titled "The Black Student Experience at Predominantly White Colleges and the Implications for School and College Counselors." The results of this study displayed that not all black students have the same experiences. There are black students from white home communities who may not have the same family and friend experiences due to their experience of white cultural norms. As for counselors, they should aim to use caution and critical thinking when deciding which interventions are most appropriate for black college students and their experiences at predominantly white colleges. So lastly, the last article that was used for my literature review was titled "African American College Students' Experiences in HBCUs and PWIs and the Learning Outcomes." The results from this study indicated that there was no significant difference between African American students attending historically black institutions and African American students attending predominantly white institutions. That is, as far as their learning capabilities. However, it did state that their college experience did differ from one another. African American students at HBCUs indicated that they have more positive relationships with faculty, less likely to perceive racial discrimination, and they are more involved in campus clubs and organizations. And to conclude, the discussion for my literature review stated, "The articles provided in this study were all great references to the topic. These articles demonstrated the many differences between African American students who attended predominantly white institutions and African American students that attended historically black colleges and universities. There were articles that specifically illustrated the differences." And lastly, for the discussion, the articles provided in this study were all great references to the topic. These articles demonstrated the many differences between African American students who attended predominantly white institutions and African American students that attended historically black colleges and universities. There were articles that specifically illustrated the differences in retention. These articles were specifically regarding retention, student engagement, and faculty and staff relations. A few of these articles also discuss various ways to counsel African American students at PWIs. For future practices, the information provided in the study can be utilized to assist in retaining African American students at PWIs and HBCUs. The study displayed that no matter the school, there are still retention issues at both PWIs and HBCUs, which displays the two similarities. This study will also assist in educating leadership on the importance of hiring more African American faculty and staff members at PWIs. To recommend for future research, there should be an in-depth study on how African American students are affected by the discriminatory admission processes at PWIs and why African American students would rather attend HBCUs. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. It was a great semester and hope to hear from you guys again. Thank you.